What's up, guys? My name is Charles. Let me be the first to officially welcome you to The Blue Post. We're going to be talking about things like video games, board games, movies, stuff that kind of encompasses the nerdier side of pop culture. Joining me today are Chris, Kelly, and Logan. So do you guys know that one board game that you really want to play, but you can never get everyone together to play it? Well, okay, we know your pain. We discuss our own methods of introducing your friends or your family to tabletop games. I think we need to make an important distinction that we're not talking about teaching someone how to play cribbage. We're talking about moving to the next step up.
How do you, like, in your guys' experience, how have we introduced games to people? Like, what's a tactic that you usually use when you're like, hey, I think you should try this tabletop game?
I think you have to know the people that you're going to try to bring in, because we just recently played with two of our good buddies, and they're not really gamers, like the occasional video game or whatever, but like they don't really do board games. They're not, and we were like, okay, well, we love playing board games and we're going to spend all this time with you. We want you guys to play, but like maybe find a game that is going to be something that we know fits their personality and that works with them. So we have this game called Mysterium, where you play as like these psychics, and you have to use a lot of visual like cards to try to get people to guess certain things. But it's all about like visual interpretation. And we're playing with one of my friends is another animator, and then her husband is a musician. So getting people like them into something that is visual and kind of artistic, I think helped them. And they're like, oh, we love this game, But I think if we tried to get them into, Dungeons and Dragons, it'd be like, this is a little complicated because that's just not their personalities. So starting with something that is in the right ballpark, I think, is like always a good start.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's a really good point, because you can't you can't just jump head in on that kind of stuff.
I've tried to get people into this a couple of times, and the thing is that to me is, no matter who it is, the ultimate gateway drug to me is always Settlers of Catan.
Yeah,
like,
to me that's true.
To me, that's the ultimate, like, because everyone understands kind of resource management. That's like a basic human thing that everyone kind of knows. And the game's kind of simple but complicated at the same time. And it's to me, that's the ultimate kind of gateway drug to like this kind of thing. It's a way to test the waters.
Yeah, I can see that.
And the way that they play Settlers, you can kind of tell what they're into and like what are they focusing on, and you can kind of gauge it that way as well.
Well, and a lot of people have played like Monopoly.
Yeah.
So like if you've played Monopoly, exactly,
yeah.
It is. I mean, you're collecting resources, and there's just, instead of it being money and buildings, it's different kinds.
Yeah.
Stuff. Yeah.
And so yeah, to me, that's sort of been the ultimate kind of icebreaker into this stuff.
Yeah, because I haven't used Catan just because I don't own it, because people in my gaming group do. But mine has been Ticket to Ride, and I think it's kind of falls into the same vein where it's a simple idea behind it. Once you explain, here's how a turn works, and you go, okay, your goal is to build these routes across the country with your railroad. It's like, it's pretty straightforward. Right. You're like, oh, I get it. But then the more they go along, the more they realize, wait, I think this guy is building to the same place I am. Oh, wait. We get points from all this at the end. I might need more. Like, so it's kind of I feel like it's more of a gradual introduction.
Right.
Where instead of being like, here, have at you with Catan, you kind of had to hit the ground running.
Right.
Whereas Ticket to Ride, I've always felt to be a little more gradual.
I think it's kind of interesting too, just kind of on the point of board games, of how this market has exploded in the past kind of 5 years.
Yeah.
And just different ideas and different kind of concepts and new things. I think it's fun. I think it's great. And I think as this continues, I think people will get more open to the idea of different kinds of board games.
Well, and I don't know if you guys have tried this before. Back before we even started to play some of the tabletop games, I'd be like, hey, Mom, because I knew if I could get her to play, everyone would play.
Sure.
Just because...
Yeah. The family dynamic.
Sure. Like, you know how you play that to win. And...
Family, the board game.
Yeah, Family, the board game. So I would show her episodes of Tabletop with Will Wheaton.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Sure.
And have you guys ever tried that before? Because I found that was actually really good to explain, here's how Ticket to Ride works before I ever opened the game for them to play.
Well, that's actually how I got Jenny into Magic. She doesn't play games that often. She's an artist, so she likes looking at the cards or looking at whatever, but she doesn't really understand how it works and things like that. But I'm a huge Day 9 fan. Day 9's a friend of mine and someone that I watch and love his content. And so Jenny watches Day 9 with me, and so she's become a fan of his. And then he started doing Spell Slingers, which is one Geek and Sundry, and it was just they have 2 celebrity guests play Magic. And Day 9 was on there all the time. And so I was like, do you want to watch Day 9 on Spell Slingers? And so, it's just them playing Magic. So that's what got her into sort of understanding what it was.
So now she knows how to play? Like,
she doesn't play, but she understands enough to watch if she watches them, she can follow along.
For sure, yeah. No, I haven't ever tried having somebody watch the video, because I feel like usually if you're like, yeah, let's play this board game, like they don't have at least the people I know don't have the patience to sit and watch it. They just want to play the game. So usually it's like a matter of like, okay, yeah, we'll try to explain this game to you, and then we'll just kind of play and figure it out. And usually it works, but I think it depends on the person. Again, you gotta know
the game too.
Yeah, the game
on what it is.
Because there's some games where I know we've played them, and I still can't tell you how the hell we actually play the rules.
The one game that comes to me all the time when I think about stuff like that is Arkham Horror.
Yes.
Yeah, I was just gonna talk about that.
Dude, Arkham Horror, I still don't
I learn something new every time.
I play it and I understand how it works, but I've played that game 10 times and I still don't quite understand how it works.
Yeah,
I don't consider myself an expert or if someone's like, hey, do you know how to play Arkham Horror? I'm like, kinda.
Sorta.
I played it 4 or 5 times. I still don't. I would not say, yeah, I know how to play Arkham Horror.
We've played it a lot, but we still bring out the rule book and I'll be like, no, you can do this thing, right? And Charles is like, I don't think so. And then looking through this book of instructions and trying to figure out, and we learn something new every time we were playing this wrong. Whoops.
Well, it's like Scrabble, right? Where you need the book assigned. You're like, is that a word? You're like, I don't know. Hold on, is that legal?
Yeah. I am a huge rules lawyer.
Oh my god!
So,
bad.
I
have DMs for you. Yes, I know.
Yes, you know, right? So
the worst.
everything I can finagle to make fit to do what I want to do, I'm going to do it.
Absolutely.
So I think that watching those tabletops, that's why it doesn't work for me. Yeah. Because then I'm just, first of all, I get frustrated because I'm like, all right, I just want to play already. I don't want to watch, when we try to play Fiasco.
Okay,
right?
yeah.
So Fiasco is have you guys heard of that before?
Yeah.
So you played it before.
Yeah.
So we tried to play Fiasco and we watched the tabletop, and I was getting so frustrated because I was like, okay, let's just play already. But it's not a game that you can really do that with. You have to actually know what you're doing.
Especially, it's a book. I mean, it's a literal book.
Right.
Yeah.
So I get far too frustrated with that kind of stuff, and because I want to have the actual book and I want to be able to look through it and find every little rule that is helpful to me. That for me, that's part of playing a board game.
Well, not to get off topic too much, but I mean, in a similar way, it makes me think of DMing, being the dungeon master for a campaign, because I guess if you're paying attention to it as the DM, you're looking at, what kind of stuff do your players like? What kind of stuff is challenging to them? What are they wanting to accomplish, with their character? I would say it's almost the same thing as trying to get people into board games. I know Charles likes looking through the rule books. If we get a new game, I'm like, here you go. Here's your rule book.
Here, I'm going to go punch out all the pieces. Keep yourself busy with this book. Go sit in the corner.
We just bought Betrayal at House on the Hill, and I sat there with one of our buddies punching out all the pieces, and he looked at all the books. And I'm organizing them, put them in little Ziplocs or whatever, so they're all tidy, because that's me, and he's looking at all the rules.
Well, you know why? Is because then there's a moment after you get the game all set up and you get the board out and whatever, no matter what the game is. And without fail, everyone kind of turns to me and goes, so how do we play this game? And if I don't know, then I'm like, and then I have to look it up in the book right then and there. But if I know ahead of time, then I can be like, all right, here's the elevator pitch.
Yeah.
This is the game.
Do you guys buy board games without knowing exactly what they are?
Yes.
Sometimes.
That's blind faith, man. Because for me, I will watch YouTube videos, I'll watch reviews, I want all kinds of stuff. Just what is this game?
I'm going to watch the full video, but I'm going to watch at least 5 minutes.
Yeah, to see
where I at least get an idea of how
what
the
it
game is.
But then there's no. It's like buying a book and then be like, all right, what happens in chapter 6? And then you're like, okay, well, now I'll buy the book now that I know what's happening.
I guess, for me, it's always if somebody kind of mentions, this game Mysterium, I know, nobody that I knew had actually heard of this game, except, a friend of mine that's from Malaysia was like, oh, me and my friends bought this game, we just found it, it's new to America, and it's really cool, you guys should play it. And I was like, what is this? She's like, it's Mysterium. So I looked it up and I was like, cool, $25, I'll pay that, whatever. It's way more expensive now because it's popular, but it's a great game. And I guess if it hadn't been, there goes $25. But I mean, I went on a recommendation of a friend that was like, I think you'd like this game, try it out. But I'd never played it. I had no idea what it was.
I mean, there are times too when we're sitting there, we're like, oh, we need a new board game. And so we'll go to Target or a game store or whatever and just be like, what looks good? Like, let's buy that game.
Which is fair.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's two different approaches. Neither one is wrong. I that's part of how I like to play games, because then I'm like, I love to kickstart games, board games. Yeah. So I have this one guy that I follow. Now I can't remember his name, so I can't promo him.
Well, we will throw a link in the show notes.
Yes.
Send me the
link. What a good idea. But every time he comes out with a new game, he does like little card games that come in tiny little boxes, so they're easily portable. Mm-hmm. And every time he comes out with a new game, I back it like right away, because they're really fun, and they when you do something like that, when you kickstart a game, you don't know, like, even if it's going to be good. You don't know what it's going to be like. You don't know how many people are going to be playing it. Like,
or if it even reaches its goal.
Right.
Yeah. That also, however, fits into the whole idea behind Kickstarter of being a part of its creation, I guess. So there's
a lot of people get hard on that.
Drinking Quest? Is that the one you were thinking of?
Yeah. So I first backed this one called Drinking Quest because I was like, awesome. Like, fantasy RPG meets alcohol. Like, this is fantastic.
Right.
And it was a really good game, but I can't get my friends to play it anymore because I like to drink too much, and they don't.
You're a lot bigger than the rest of us.
I think we played it once.
We did, yeah. So he's got a new game out now, and I backed it right away, and he's successful, so it hit its goal really quick. But I have no idea what the gameplay is going to be like. I don't know. I think he said there's like, it comes with a little meeple, so I don't know. Like, I don't know how it works at all. But I'm excited to open up and be like, okay, let's figure this out. Let's play it as a new experience and move from there. And I think that can also be a draw to people who are not necessarily board game players, because they're like, if you're someone who's playing Arkham Horror and you're playing all of these like really, really intense board games,
right,
and you're trying to bring people into that world, starting from a place where both of you don't know what's going on can be helpful too.
True. Yeah.
Well, I think that's a little different too, because like that's someone coming from a creator that you trust, right? Like, that's something that where you're like, I like this person.
Right.
I understand. Like, they're not going to put me astray. It's like, oh, I'm gonna just dive headfirst into there. But like, that's scary sometimes. With something that you don't know.
Yeah,
is scary.
One of I think my favorite things was after I showed my parents Pandemic, I leave for work.
Fucking Madagascar.
And isn't that's
the other one?
That's the other one.
I know, but like every time I think of like those kinds of games,
like fuck Madagascar. Yeah. So anyway,
somebody sneezes in Korea and they close the ports.
Yeah, I'm like, God damn it.
So I introduced my family to Pandemic. My dad, being my dad, was like, but my mom and sister like loved it because I had gone to work a full like 8-hour shift. So I'm gone about probably 10 hours at this point. I come back home. The game is still out, and they've been playing like almost nonstop. Good. My sister and mom, to the point where
just one on one.
No, well, it's in Pandemic. You're playing against the board,
right?
So it was cooperative. So they got so good that they were doing stuff, and I'm like, they're like, what should we do? And I'm like, you guys know this game
right?
better
You guys are
than
the
me
pros
now.
Yeah.
Which was actually a really good feeling. It was really nice to be like, I am responsible for this insanity.
See, now, you just brought up a good point, though, is that I think that's another thing about bringing people into a tabletop game is cooperation. Because if you're playing a game where, you're like, okay, it's all for all, you're trying to win by doing this thing, they're like, I don't know how to play, you guys know how to play, clearly you have the advantage. It's like a little daunting. You're like, okay, I don't understand, there's so many things. But like, if it's a cooperative game, you're like, okay, yeah, we're trying to do this thing together. Let me help you. Like, let me sit with you and like, we can work this out. And you're working as a team. So it's not like this like constant of like, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm still trying to learn the rules and the game and win at the same time.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
I think that's as much as I love the game, I think that's a flaw of Munchkin actually.
Yeah.
Is that it's so competitive.
It is.
It's so like,
it gets real ugly.
You just like you basically just stockpile all your bombs until someone's about to win. And then you just like, destroy that person, and God forbid that's the new person who accidentally got up to the 9 first.
We got my dad to play Arkham Horror, right? So my dad does not do board games. He's not into them. He doesn't like to sit and learn all the rules, let alone something really complicated like Arkham Horror. But like, we were like, Daddy, we just got this game. Like, so let's have a drink. Like, we'll teach you how to play. It's cooperative. And he was like, okay. But the whole game, because he didn't, like, he would be like, I don't know, so what do I do? How do I beat this monster? Like, what do I do? How many dice do I roll? What am I looking for? Like, we could sit there and be like, yeah, this is what you need to do. Like, this is how you do it. Yeah, good job. You help us beat this thing. This is our strategy to beat the board game. Because otherwise he'd be like, this is so much information to process and I'm playing against you, you know?
Yeah.
But he ended up loving it. We played like 2 or 3 times and like, he the other day he was like, I want to play this again. Like, how's the game? Like, have you guys played? Like, did you guys beat the monster? Like, you know.
But on the flip side, I know when my uncle has come up to visit, because, you know, parents are in town, and he's like, hey, get to see my sister. He doesn't like cooperative games.
Oh, interesting.
Because his scene is he wants to beat you.
He's competitive, yeah.
So I think it goes back to the knowing the person you're introducing your game to.
Right.
And because for him, like a lot of the games my mom enjoyed, like Pandemic,
Right.
he was not interested in. But I think that's where it really gets interesting is when you're introducing more than one person at a time. It then becomes this weird juggling act of trying to find a good game that isn't necessarily too aggressive if it's not cooperative.
Right, yeah.
But-
Because that's the thing is when we just recently played Mysterium with, God, how many people? We had 8. And then the
It was
max...
10 total.
No, because it was...
Wasn't it? Was it 8 total?
Yeah, because Chad and Johnny weren't there.
Oh,
it was
okay.
8. Yeah, it's 8, and it's 7 max. So Charles and I were like, oh, we're going to change the story. Like, instead of, like, a guy getting murdered in his house, it was, like, a couple, and we're going to both be the ghosts and, like, do the thing. And so we did that so that way we were, like, distributing visions together as a team. And, like, but we were playing, I think, with, like, 6 of the 7 in the group had never played Mysterium before. It never played it. But because it was cooperative, and we explained it and whatever, like, working as a team, like, they had a great time, and it worked, but...
It's been a while since I played it with you guys, but that one, cooperative is part of the entire thing.
Yeah.
Because if you don't, like, with that one, it's a 2-phase game, and if not everybody makes it through the first phase, you all lose. Everybody,
Yeah.
it's over.
But it's like, because I don't think you've played it.
No, I have not.
We'll have to show you. It's really cool.
Basically, there is a person who plays like the ghost that's haunting a mansion and gives people visions, and then you have to guess based off the vision what area of the building, then what
it's like
item
Clue.
in the... It's
Who
like
killed
Clue.
the ghost, where, and with what object. Yeah, so...
But when you're sitting there going, when you're trying to figure out what the vision means, it's cooperative, where everyone in the group can sit there and be like, man, I think my vision means this.
Everyone's like, oh, no,
I think it's that. So it has a nice cooperative environment, even though you're playing your own
It sounds like
set.
Board Game Mafia.
Yeah,
Like.
kind of is.
Sort of, yeah.
I think you guys bring up a good point too of teaching. So like, say you want to work up to like Arkham Horror, right?
Right.
Like, okay, what elements do I need to teach them about? Like, what board game does this really well? What board game does that really well? And then once they learn those elements of like, all right, this is how you work with cards. This is how you work with kind of board resource management. This is how you work with blah blah blah. And then you have them play a couple games of that, and then they get comfortable with board games. Then you introduce them to something more complicated.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, because a lot of the games share a lot of like similar, you know, dice
and then
games
some of
are
them
similar.
do kind of specialize in a certain type or aspect of the strategy of the game. So it helps in that way. Like the biggest thing was I taught. You remember this? I taught Logan and I taught Jeff Street Fighter V.
Okay. Yeah.
Oh,
Right.
Yeah.
And like, I showed them Street Fighter V first, and then I was like, okay, like they're kind of getting that, and then I was like, all right, let's go to Dive Kick. Right.
Oh
like, let's go to Dive Kick.
Seriously, might be one of my favorite video games I've ever played.
Right.
This is
like you love Dive Kick, right? But like Dive Kick teaches the idea of footsies and like the idea of like baiting someone and the idea of like this back and forth of not even hitting each other, but just like kind of back and forth.
Because that game is almost like 90% mental.
Yeah, it's all mental. It's all whatever. And then I introduced you to DOA. Then Marvel's Capcom, and then eventually got back to Street Fighter V. And then once they stepped back into it, then it was like, oh, okay, now this makes total sense.
Right.
And it's like kind of introducing them to elements versus like what's easier, and then getting them to that big fish of like, okay, now you can play Street Fighter V comfortably, and I can teach you without having a problem. But yeah, I think that kind of covers the board game topic.
Yeah.
So I know Logan, you just had a brief experience with this.
Brief experience with this.
Brief experience.
Brief. My parents were in town visiting over Christmas, and I got them and my sister to sit down and play Dungeons and Dragons.
Break down your parents a little bit so we can get more of an idea.
My mom her family always played games. Whenever we would go to visit relatives, we would always play the same goddamn card game. We even made you two play it while they were here. But that was always the game they played, but they would always branch off beyond that, like with Parcheesi and Monopoly and other stuff. So getting her to play tabletop games was no big deal. My mom's favorite game of all time right now is Lords of Waterdeep. My dad, on the other hand, would only be playing those games because of like the social aspect. Like, well, everyone's playing, so I'm going to play too. I always noticed that my dad just never could get into the games. Like, he just was not taking a part of it. And so I was like, okay, let's take a different tactic. Let's try something different. And I went, hey, let's do D&D because that's less of a move a person around the board and more of a thinking creatively while you play.
Your dad's a story guy, so...
Yeah. When my sister and I were like really, really little, he would tell us bedtime stories, but instead of grabbing a book and telling us a story, he would just come up with something off the top of his head. Or he would be like, well, I just read this book about this thing. Well, I'm the protagonist now. And so...
No, sorry. In my head, I'm picturing him standing over your bed going, I'm the protagonist now.
Look at me. I'm the protagonist now.
No. But so he would tell us stories. He was like a World War II fighter ace. He was some super secret British spy, and like stuff like that.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, well, he might be a little more inclined for Dungeons and Dragons, where it's less of a here are the rules and more of a here's the universe.
It's more of a fun. Here are all the rules that you can ignore.
Be creative, though.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing. The more he started to play, the more he realized, like, oh, I can just do this.
Well, because it is daunting at the beginning, you know, playing a kind of game like that with someone who hasn't done anything like that before.
Yeah, they know nothing about
all
it.
of the dice and the numbers and the paperwork and the math.
Yeah.
It's a lot. It's a lot.
Yeah. If what it really came down to is my dad loved it. My sister played too, but I was not concerned with her at all because she's...
You figured she'd like it.
Well, I figured she'd like it. Plus, she's like done a lot of acting before, so she's it kind of just was like, okay, cool. I get to do whatever. I think for her it was like, oh, I get to play Lord of the Rings. My mom was the one who had the biggest problem with it because she wanted everything kind of laid out for her, where it was like, okay, you come across this scene, your options are A, B, and C, and in D&D, the DM isn't going to tell you A, B, and C.
Right.
Well, I think it comes down to like the things that she's used to, like Parcheesi and like that. Where like those are very structured.
Yeah.
They have rules. There's strategy
Yeah.
that's very obvious in some games. It's you know, with this, it's so free form and it's so whatever you make it. You know.
But I videotaped everything because I am me. So we will have clips of that. But you don't really notice anything around you in the forest as you approach.
And what does that mean?
That means we need to be careful.
You see up ahead, alongside the path, 4 goblins. An arrow. Right here, right in the shoulder. And it's gonna do 7 damage.
What does that mean? Am I gonna live?
So you're gonna use your
Hand-to-hand
Yeah,
battle,
why would
yeah.
you?
Attack the 2.
roll for damage.
11!
As the lightning shoots out, the goblin just gets flung back.
Yes!
Something else that we kind of want to make a reoccurring segment is sort of things that we're excited about, or things that we love, or things that we're kind of recently been getting into or getting back into. Kelly, you want to go ahead and kind of bring it up?
We just got really into Dead by Daylight. So it's a game you can get on Steam. One person plays the killer. Everybody else is like trying to find a way to escape from like a map that it puts you in. Really fun to play with like your friends because everybody's like screaming or yelling or being like, no, like don't look at my screen, or like, no, like don't, you can't find me. So worth it. Like good hours of fun and you just laugh and it's hysterical. Charles?
My new and noteworthy thing is that I went to this restaurant recently. We went to, it was called, I'm going to plug it, it's called Take a Bow. It's spelled Take Bow, but it's like Take a Bow.
Got it.
It's like a Chinese bow place. That's like what they do.
Sure.
So they have these amazing buns. And I had, they're about the size of your fist. They're big. And
Like
I ate
Charles'
like 3
fist,
of
not
them.
mine,
And
yeah.
they were fantastic. And there was one that was like a banh mi one. So it had like pickled cucumbers and carrots. Okay, that was delicious. So I'm going to say that was the new noteworthy thing, is that I had the most amazing bow in my life there.
It was really cool.
Take a bow.
It's in Studio City.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if you're in LA, go to
Yes.
Studio City.
Yeah. So this podcast only for people in LA.
Only for people in Los
I
Angeles.
think it's a chain though. I think.
Is it?
Maybe in
You
LA.
can look it
though.
up.
Yeah.
We'll plug it.
Google it, you lazy bastards.
So my thing is actually a mobile game. So for the past 3 years, I've been playing Marvel Future Fight, which is made by Netmarble, and it's awesome. It's like a thing that like Marvel sort of Diablo 3 style dungeon crawler. But Netmarble just came out with another game, working again with Disney, doing Star Wars, and it's called Star Wars Force Arena. And so it works a lot like if you've played Clash Royale, where you have cards and you sort of send them down different lanes, and sort of it works a lot like a tower defense kind of game. But at the same time, while you're playing with these cards, you have an avatar that is a Star Wars character. So it's Han Solo, or it's Luke Skywalker, or the Emperor, or you have Ezra from Rebels, or you have
So it
all
has
kinds
the
of
whole
different-
universe.
Yeah, and they're coming out with more, but I mean, like right now is just the initial launch where it's just the original trilogy and Rebels characters, and that game is highly addictive, a ton of fun. Again, it works on a card-based system like Royal or Clash Royale, so it's a little grindy,
Sure.
but like it's just a ton of fun, and I highly recommend that game.
For me, again a video game, but not Star Wars. It's a game I've shared with a lot of people before that I came across months ago called Banished. And it's basically, the best description I've read is it's SimCity if the game is trying to kill everyone in the town.
Yes.
You are in charge of a bunch of settlers who have been kicked out of another town. And
Banished,
you have to
if you will.
banished.
Yeah.
And they have to start their own little village. And it kicks your ass. But
It's so fun though.
it's so much fun. The thing that is the most striking about it is it was created by one guy.
Yeah, it's very simple, but it
Yeah.
works.
Yeah,
Like,
and I think the only theme he didn't do himself was the music.
sure.
And I think that was his brother. I might be wrong on that, but no, there was one time where I was playing and a tornado hit in year 5. And I recovered. I was so
awesome.
proud of myself because I was down,
Oh,
the
thanks for
tornado
life.
hits and I lose a bunch of people because of it. Deaths galore because half my workforce no longer had a home in wintertime. And so they all died and I still somehow recovered.
That's awesome.
So yeah, Banished.
Thank you guys so much for checking out our pilot episode of The Blue Post. We have tons of cool content coming up that we're so excited to share with you guys. If you liked our stuff, like, share, subscribe, rate us on iTunes, share us with your friends and your enemies. We're also on YouTube and our website, www.teambluepost.com. One more bit of business. I wanted to give a very special shout out to my friend Jeff. He actually purchased this microphone for us to use, so it is pretty much thanks to him that we're getting this show off the ground. So thank you so much to Jeff. And if you have a Jeff in your life, you make sure to thank him too.